After 3 ministers, 5 years, and dozens of amendments, the Liberal government's controversial Online Streaming Act has finally become law, and there are some big changes coming for streamers. The law will require platforms to promote Canadian content, require streaming services like Netflix to pay to support Canadian media content like music and TV shows, and it will give the CRTC broad powers over digital media companies, including the ability to impose financial penalties for violations of the Act. Despite these big changes, the Liberals promise there will be no negative impact on Canadian consumers, but it faced some opposition from the Senate.
This is a bill, C-11, which without a doubt in my mind opens the door to censorship.
So what's next for this bill and how will it impact Canadians? Pablo Rodríguez is the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Minister, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
So you got C-11 over the finish line through the parliamentary process, but now there's a public consultation process that needs to be done by the CRTC before it fully comes into force. So how quickly do you think we'll see these new measures?
Well, before that, the next step is I have to send a policy directive to the CRTC.
Right.
It's pretty much finished. It should be going to the CRTC in the next few weeks. And then there'll be consultation on that policy directive, and then I'll send them the final version, and then they will be consulting on regulations. We want to go as soon as possible because this is needed by our cultural world, by the music people, film, television. We're going to move as fast as possible. But yesterday was a great day for our cultural people.
But this next step, this consultation process, pre-implementation, is this something that takes months, a year, multiple years? I mean, what sort of a time do you put on it?
It's not multiple year, but it's going to take a little while. It's a complex bill. Many governments have tried to modernize the Broadcasting Act, but the last time it was modernized was 1991. 1991. I don't know how old you are, but at that moment, I would listen to music in a little yellow box called a Walkman.
Yeah.
I would go to Blockbusters to rent VHS's movies, and the internet wasn't there. So that's the kind of legislative environment we had until yesterday for streamers that didn't exist at the time. So it's a big thing.
Right, and the bringing the streamers under essentially the same regulations as conventional broadcasters with the requirement to contribute to Canadian content and promote Canadian content. The other part of it, though, where there's real deep skepticism is still these independent content creators who use YouTube, who use TikTok. They're still deeply skeptical and mistrustful of how this legislation will affect them. What reassurance can you give them now that it's gotten royal assent?
Well, first of all, as I always said, it's not about them. It's about the platforms. Only platforms have obligation. It's not about users, you and me being in front of a screen watching. It's not about us, and it's not about those online creators. It's about the platforms. We're asking them two things. As you said, they're going to have to, contribute, pitch in money, contribute to the creation of Canadian content first, and second, make sure that we see more of us, of our stories, of our productions on their platform. So discoverability is very important. So,
okay, I want to deal with both of these things. Let's talk about the discoverability first for a second. So Netflix is affected by this. When I fire up my Netflix, I see here's what's trending, top 10 shows on Netflix, picked for you. Will I see a Canadian pane? Is that how you imagine it looking, like a Canadian content?
That's one of the ways. I'm interested in the output. The process is up to them. So they can do whatever they want. As long as they do it, as long as we see more of us on their platforms, they can play with, if they want, with the algorithms. They don't have to. Their decision. They can pay for advertising. They can pay for, big panels on the side of the road. Watch this great movie or show. They can put more emphasis on them on their website. It's up to them to decide, but at the end of the day, we need to see more of us. And then it's up to you and I and Canadians to decide if they want to watch it or not.
Right.
But at least you have those options.
Okay, so as long as they're investing in Canadian content or content that meets the definition of Canadian content and then making it visible and available in some fashion, you're okay.
But all of that is huge. It's very important because they didn't have anything that would force them to do it. Now they do.
Okay, I just want to get back to the independent content creators because you've assured them they won't be affected by this. The CRTC issued a statement assuring them they won't be affected by this. But throughout this process, amendments to put that explicitly into the legislation were rejected. Like why not give them that assurance in writing in the legislation instead of a policy reassurance which can change at any time?
Well, the amendment from the Senate didn't exactly do that. It created some kind of a loophole where, for example, you could play a song, the same exact song that is on Spotify, but you put a backdrop, a tree, on YouTube, and that song and that song would not count as commercial content. We want things to be treated equally. So if it's commercial content on YouTube, then and it's on Spotify, then it should be treated the same way. So it was a loophole, but the bill doesn't do anything of that. It's not about using. It's only giving obligations to the platforms. But I would be more specific in my policy direction for more reassurance.
Okay, so the policy direction is where you'll give them this reassurance. Like, how explicit are you prepared to go so that people who make a living making content for YouTube or whatever don't get caught up in this unnecessarily?
No, it will be definitely more explicit, but the bill itself is clear. You know, what people are saying is, oh my God, they're going to come out after my content. I mean, we're not interested, and I say this very respectfully, even if what they create is incredible and we love it, we're not interested in their content. Even if we were, who would watch those contents? There are millions of videos uploaded every day in Canada, millions. Who? The CRTC would sit in front of the screen and watch every of those million. It's impossible. So we're not interested in the content, and there's no way to do it anyways. It's only to make sure that if there's commercial content there, it's captured, which we use that to say to the platforms, you have to contribute. That's
right, but if there's knock-on effects and unintended consequences, so if you're saying to say YouTube or another social platform that they have to amplify certain types of content, that then pushes down other types of content. And you have content creators in Canada who are worried that if they don't explicitly meet the CAN-CON definition that these algorithms will be asked to amplify, that they'll be squeezed out.
No, only if YouTube decides to do things like that, then it's their own decision, because it can amplify or disamplify whoever they want. And they're doing it today, they will do it tomorrow, they do it day by day to all their creators. But the bill doesn't do that.
What do you say to the critics? We've heard this from the Conservatives emphatically throughout this, that they say any attempt to manipulate or influence what people see on the internet, which has always been sort of a no-holds-barred environment ever since it launched, amounts to government censorship and intrusion into what is supposed to be really essentially a free market of ideas and content.
But
that by telling the social media platforms what to highlight, you're censoring.
We're not telling the platforms what. We're just telling them we want more Canadian content. Then it's up to every Canadian to decide what they're going to watch or not. Like, if you have more choices, more Canadian content, but you still don't want to watch that, you want to watch other stuff, it's your own decision. That's it. We cannot force it. We just want to have those options there. Why? Because what we create is amazing. Because our music is great, our films, our television shows, they're appreciated here across the world. We want to see a little bit more of that on their screens, and then Canadians decide what they watch.
How much money on an annual basis do you think this is?
It's hard to say for now, because the model is flexible. We want to make sure that the platforms, that it takes into consideration the different businesses models from the different platforms. Some people talked about 800 million a year, and I heard $1 billion a year, could be less. I don't know the exact amount, but it's going to be a lot of money. That's for sure.
But have you done any projections in terms of where the content contributions from the big tech companies that you're regulating with this compare to where it will be after this? Like, what's the net gain?
Well, it depends. There's different scenarios. That's right. Exactly. So based on the directives and the regulations there, that will have an impact on what the amounts would be at the end of the day. But whatever we do, there will be much more money, and there will be much more of our own content, Canadian content showcased on those platforms.
Okay, Minister Rodriguez, thanks for your time.
Thanks to you.